Hello and welcome to the Legally Empowered podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Merseyside Junior Lawyers Division in celebration of International Women's Day 2022, sponsored by MSB Solicitors. My name is Erin Watkinson and I'm the Careers and Education Representative for Merseyside Junior Lawyers Division and a Civil Liberties Paralegal at Brodie Jackson Cantor. So my guest today is Alison Lobb, Managing Partner of Morecrofts. So firstly, would you like to begin with telling us your route into law?
Hi Erin. Yes, my route into law was very straightforward, as the same as many people will have done. I went to school, did A-levels, went to university and did a law degree, and then I went to the College of Law in Chester, as it was then, to do my Law Society finals, which shows my age a little bit, I'm afraid. And then I did articles, which is what we now call a training contract, at a local firm called EAD. And then I was qualified.
Right, okay. So what inspired you to get into the legal profession?
I actually was never really inspired to get into the legal profession. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a clue when I was coming up to choosing when I was at school. And it was a case of, well, a law degree is a good degree to have and there's lots of other things you can do with it. But then obviously once you go to university and you start studying law, you get a bit involved in it and enmeshed in it. And then by the time you were in your second year, you had to apply for law college places. By the time you were in your third year, you had to apply for your articles. So before you know it, really, you're just on that train track. And then it's not until quite a lot later you look back and think, oh, I'm here now.
Yeah. So in your role as managing partner of Morecrofts, what's a typical day like for you?
I think any managing partner would say there is no typical day. My role involves strategy for the business. It involves marketing and business development. It involves overseeing all the training, and I'm also the culp for my sins, and I'm in charge of all the compliance for the firm, as well as everything else really that crosses my desk. So I can spend days when I have lots of meetings. I can spend very rare days when I actually get to do stuff at a desk. But a lot of my time is spent interacting with people, whether that's for good things that are happening or not so good things that are happening, but hopefully more good than bad.
Yeah, great. So with this being a podcast for International Women's Day, we're sort of focusing on our roots into law. And what advice would you have liked to receive at the start of your career?
When I first qualified, I thought that I wanted to do family law. And because the last 12 months of my training, I'd done family and I knew about it and I was confident in it, and I moved to another firm when I first qualified to do family, and I discovered that once you were out on your own, you were in charge of a caseload, and you had nobody to call on, to talk to bounce things off. It was actually certainly wasn't for me, and I have massive admiration for people who do practice family law, because I think you need so much emotional resilience.
Definitely.
As well as it's the juxtaposition between being emotional support for people, dealing with all the emotional baggage they bring with them, but at the same time, a lot of the time, having to also charge them for that as a professional. And I think that's a very, very difficult thing to do. I really just didn't get on with being a family lawyer. And so I think my advice to other people would be, don't feel pigeonholed into an area of work if you're not happy doing it. The law is such a vast profession. There are so many different things you can do. And there are so many different ways you can work as well. You've got solicitors, you've got barristers, you've got in-house lawyers, you've got academic roles. And in the future, there'll be far, far more as technology takes a bigger part as well. So I don't think anyone should be pigeonholed at the start of their career. I think you should be open to lots of new ideas and never afraid to put the hand up and try something new.
That's great advice, thank you. So I'm aware you're an ambassador for Women in the Law. So what does that involve?
Women in the Law is a movement that was started by a barrister in Manchester called Sally Penny, who you may have come across. Sally is very vocal about opportunities for women, and she introduced her Women in the Law movement further afield and brought it into Liverpool. Obviously, over the last 2 years, we've been able to do very little because it focused upon networking events and bringing junior and senior women together. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do more on that side of things. So watch this space.
Great. So following on from you being an ambassador for women in the law, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
I think it's important. I don't think it's the end of everything. I think don't think we should have just one day when we're celebrating women. I think it's no secret that in the legal profession there are now more women coming in than men, but that there is still a long way to go in terms of senior roles, particularly in the larger city firms. I think in Liverpool we have got some very strong senior female lawyers, including many of my partners. And I think we all support each other and we all know what it takes to get women to that place of seniority. I think International Women's Day is a really good reminder of that and a chance to showcase some of that, give some of those people a platform and show people coming through what can be done.
Yeah, great. So sort of following on from that, what do you think the biggest challenge to gender inequality in the law is?
I've spoken quite a bit about this because I don't think there's one single challenge. I mean, there's no denying that women obviously in a lot of cases take time out of their careers to have children, and also that women generally tend to have caring responsibilities other than that as well, so elderly parents or other family members, and that a lot of them do find it very difficult to balance the two, and there's no surprise in that. I just think it's essential that the people at the top of firms recognise that and give those people opportunities and support them, because if they don't, they're going to be losing some incredibly talented women. I think it's just essential that the people at the top understand what attracts women to be ambitious, because I think men and women sometimes have different views and come at things from a different direction. And one of the things that I talk to people quite a lot about is the language that they use when they are recruiting or asking people to apply for promotion, because there's quite a lot of study out there that words like aggressive, ambitious, competitive don't necessarily attract women to those roles. And then the one thing that I always tell people, that somebody told me once, was the story about, if you advertise a job and you put out a job description and a man can do everything but one thing on there, they will apply for it. If a man can do one thing on there, they will apply for it. But if a woman can do everything but can't do one thing, they'll think they're not good enough to do it. And that needs to change.
Definitely, yeah, of course. So obviously you're a managing partner at Morecrofts, so have you had any mentor support, or is there anyone that sort of inspired you to progress to a senior role?
I didn't think of it as mentoring at the time, but it probably was. It wasn't formally put to me as mentoring, but my predecessor, Helen Broughton, was the first managing partner of Morecrofts who was a woman, and she, I'm sure, broke down a lot of barriers for me, and she recognised in me someone who was going to be able to manage the firm and be her successor, and she did cultivate that in me. She started taking me to meetings to see how things were done, and she brought me onto the board of management quite early in the firm. She probably brought me into partnership earlier than otherwise I would have had. So she did help me on that journey. But then she sort of let me go and let me do my thing.
Released into the
wild.
Then.
Yeah, but she didn't try and make me into another version of her. She allowed me to do it my way, which was great.
So I'm aware that you're involved with the advancement of women in leadership. So why do you think that's so important in 2022, and how can we sort of progress with women in leading roles in law?
Again, it's coming back to it's the same issue as in the legal profession, as in society generally, I think. I mean, there's no doubt that there are some very powerful women now in leadership roles in this country and around the world, and some of them are quoted as fantastic role models, and some of them are vilified. And I think it can sometimes be quite difficult to be a woman who gets to the top, because I do think there's a potential there for them to attract more of that sort of vilification and abuse, etc. It is, again, going back to what I said before, it's about supporting people, it's about making them resilient, and it's about giving them the opportunities, because there's absolutely no doubt there's some fantastic women out there who just need the opportunities to shine.
Yeah, just some people just need that extra push.
Yes.
Sometimes,
yes,
definitely. So as well as being a managing partner at Morecrofts, you was also the president of Liverpool Law Society. Is it 2015 to 16?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So
yeah.
what did you enjoy most about that role?
Oh, I absolutely loved that role. It's such an honour. I think, first of all, you go into it knowing that you've been chosen by the past presidents of the society to follow them. So you go into it with some element of confidence. I must be the right person for this, which always obviously helps. Part of that, the role involves representing the members of Liverpool Law Society nationally and locally, and so you're speaking for about 2,500 people, if not more. And I was very fortunate there were no major controversies during my year. But I think the most enjoyable part of it is travelling around the country, meeting people at other law societies, representing Liverpool both in the Joint 5 societies and at Chancery Lane, in talking about political issues and things that affect the profession, and then also the social side, obviously, and going to all the posh dinners, going into places that you probably would never otherwise go, like Middle Temple and the Temple Church, and the absolute highlight then had to be the opening of the new legal year at Westminster Abbey, when you process in robed with all the judges and everybody else, and addressed by the Lord Chancellor. So that was amazing. But I think what I take from it is the opportunity I had to meet so many great people, to see how you could influence policy, and the friends I've made and still have now.
Oh, great. So sort of following on from that, what would you say is that been the highlight of your legal career?
Ooh. Probably becoming managing partner, because it was something I wanted, but I hadn't shouted about it. I'd sort of just been quietly thinking I'd really like to do that one day. And the fact that my partners unanimously voted for me to be managing partner, I think was reinforced in me that this is something that I really wanted to do. And then winning the Woman Solicitor of the Year award in 2019 at the National Law Society Awards. Unfortunately, I couldn't go, which was quite sad, because I feel I missed something from that occasion. But that was fantastic, and I don't think that's got to be the pinnacle, hasn't it? Because I don't think where do you go from there, really?
Definitely. Well, where do you go from there? Being Women Lawyer of the Year, it's amazing. So, sort of finally, just to end our podcast today, what would you say are 3 tips for aspiring female lawyers?
So you asked me about this before I came, and I did quite a bit of thinking about it, because I'm not sure, it was quite hard to narrow it down to 3, to be honest. I think the first one is find yourself a role model, internal within the firm you're working with or wherever else you're working, or external, out there in the world, someone that you admire the way they do things, and watch how they do things. You don't necessarily have to copy them, but you can pick up tips from them as to how they deal with situations, and get themselves out of difficulties, and put themselves forward as well. Because the second one really is not being afraid to tell people about yourself, to be confident, and to talk about your ambitions. Because if you don't tell people what you want to achieve, no one will know. I think a lot of us go through life, and I did a bit when I was wanted to become managing partner. I think I made an assumption that the other partners would know it was me who wanted to do it, and actually they didn't. And if I hadn't put my hand up and said, actually, I'd like to do this, I might not be doing it now. So I don't like to sort of say, make it a woman-man thing, but it is very noticeable that men will say, I can do this. I did this, and be very confident, and never be shy of telling people how great they are.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's really difficult, but it's something we all have to do as well. And the third thing is not to expect everything to happen to you at once, and not to measure yourself against your peers and think that you're not doing as well as other people, because everyone develops at different rates. And women in particularly do tend to have career breaks, and it's all about you. It's not about them. So you just need to take every opportunity for you to improve and grow, and you'll get there.
That's excellent advice, because I think it's important to remember that everyone is on their own journey.
Yes.
And has their own path.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for today, Alison.
That's fine. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks.